Jagex has just released a teaser trailer giving us a sneak peek into RuneScape's upcoming boss dungeon, the Sanctum of Rebirth. In this video, we'll dive into the trailer and analyze all the details we can gather from the snippet so far, so whenever you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. The trailer starts out with what I believe is the starting point for the short quest you're going to need to complete to gain access to the Sanctum of Rebirth. This dungeon can be completed with any of the existing 4 combat stalls, even though the only requirement you need to start this quest is the Necromancy tutorial. This image shared on the official RuneScape Twitter gives you a better idea of what you need to get started or jump into this content once it releases on the 22nd of July, so next week on Monday. The message they're trying to get through to you here is that you should have mobility abilities unlocked, as they're going to be very useful in this dungeon for the good start part, and things that reduce the cooldown of these abilities are going to be really useful as well, being the Mobile Invention perk or the Shadow's Grace Archaeology Relic power. By the way, bit of self-promotion here, I literally just updated my archaeology guide, so if you need to train archaeology, check out my guide, link below. The reason Bone Shield is listed here is probably because you're going to need some defenses here, and it's far easier to use the ability directly with the Bone Shield incantation unlocked through Necromancy than to swap to a shield as a switch. The better prepared part is literally telling you that higher tier weapons, overloads, and damage potential increasing equipment are going to be useful here, which means that these bosses will likely have pretty high defense, and reducing their defense or increasing your accuracy, making your hit chance higher, is going to be useful. In the next few shots of the trailer, before we get to the actual bosses themselves, we see the boss arenas and a player doing agility course parts or obstacles to get to those boss arenas. So that makes me believe there are going to be a couple things here that might give you agility XP, probably nothing substantial, but it's worth noting that they are highlighting this in the teaser trailer, which is interesting. For the eagle-eyed among you, you might recognize this outfit, as that's fellow content creator and now JMod, the RS guy. The trailer then highlights some action footage at the first boss, which seems to have multiple heads and a puking attack, which reminds me a little bit of Crassy Leviathan, except unlike Crassy Leviathan, instead of ignoring them and basically focusing on one head, it seems that you might have to take out 3 different heads, as we see multiple health bars. Except the one that's puking, of course, you can't attack because that's probably going to be a massive damage dealing attack. Also, I'm going to pause the video here. Do you notice that blue glowing orb coming out of the mouth? That's probably that big massive hit at the start, and if that soft type is damage, you're going to be able to resonance that for a fat heal. I do believe that the yellow adrenaline bar is the boss's puke bar, basically, where when it's full, that particular boss head will use the puke attack, and that part of the arena will then be inaccessible, unless you're using barricade or something of the sort. Also, notice how the player here is taking massive damage, and as soon as the remaining 3,000 life points or so get knocked out, you can see a massive heal, and this looks like a sign of life or something similar, and this is 100% the new normal mode death mechanic, where if you die, you don't actually get sent to death's office, and instead you're revived, except you have far less damage output for a given period of time. This only works in normal mode, by the way, and will not work in hard mode. The second boss has a bunch of screen time in this trailer, not only of the arena, but of the boss's mechanics as well. We can see a couple of really new mechanics, and one familiar one being something that looks like Nexus Ice Prison, but I'll get to that in just a second. At the end of this little clip, we can see the revival mechanic again, because this is definitely a player dying in normal mode. The first mechanic showcased is the reason that Jagex recommends you unlock the dive ability and or have access to things that reduce the cooldowns of that ability and surge and escapes cooldown as well. This is crystal clear attack telegraphing of a boss's mechanics and their area of effect. We can also see a player diving out of the way of this mechanic to avoid its damage. This attack is a bunch of crystals, and you're probably frozen in place, and you need to destroy them to get out of it and reduce damage, or be able to use defensives. I have a gut feeling that the orb going towards the player is the thing that will smack you for big damage if you don't make it out of those crystals or the ice prison in time. Also, I just want to take a moment to say how much I appreciate this attack telegraphing animation. It just looks so good, and it's going to be incredibly helpful for PVMers trying to get into PVM. It also seems that this mechanic can be either narrow or wide depending on the life points or phase of the boss. This is what the mechanic looks like when it fires off, which is like a wave of what I presume to be soft typeless damage, or maybe even hard typeless damage. Either way, it's going to hurt. Next, we see a similar version of this mechanic popping off, except it's a wave that goes towards the player as the player is trying to attack the obelisk or pillar for what I presume is to get into the second or third phase. There's 2 pillars, so I'm going to go ahead and assume that this boss has 3 phases. Alternatively, what also could be the case is that by killing the obelisks, which takes more time, just like at Raziel, you weaken the boss in some shape or form. It might not be worth doing this and instead just DPSing down the boss, but hey, we don't know. The wave attack that seems to deal about 7,000 damage to the player goes back and forth and ricochets off the arena back towards the boss, which could imply that you need to destroy the obelisk to stop these waves from occurring. The last few seconds of the trailer clearly showcase the third and final boss, of which the least amount of footage, or in fact no actual mechanical footage, is shown. And there really isn't much more on these bosses other than a couple of ads I've seen around on Instagram. By the way, my Instagram is linked below. Another shameless plug in quite a short video. I don't think there's all that much to analyze here other than the arena being relatively small unless you teleport somewhere for an additional phase. This is obviously going to be the hardest boss. This eye might be something related to the boss fight or the thing you click to claim your loot. And the boss itself, a female character wielding those brand new tier 95 dual wield magic weapons. This is the first time we've seen the actual models in game, because so far all we've seen is the actual concept art. They look good. The update looks good, and I'm sure it will be good fun to play on release. My guess is that this dungeon will be Araxo level difficulty normal mode, and about Carapac and Zuck hard mode level difficulty in hard mode. Bossing updates are generally some of the more exciting things RuneScape releases, and I'm going to be streaming this on release together with a fellow content creator by the name of Cheverick. And yes, for those that cannot make the stream, you can of course expect to see a video on release covering the update, in addition to some other content around this update in the update week, so make sure you're subscribed. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.